And it's like, what to do? So why I'm actually having this discussion with you is figured out what to do. Now we can talk about it. Now we can get some protection from it, because the whole idea is to decrease your length of life gradually, depopulate the world population somewhat gradually. That's what the chemtrails are doing. But again, most important is really a weakened population from biological warfare, virus infections, URIs, colds, flus, that kind of thing, and really the scalar wave and radio wave mind control that is explicitly there. They have this technology. This is not like a fantasy type thing. Okay, so what to do? So I'm going to talk about the big six. First, silver. The Russian research on biological warfare shows that silver will knock out 98% of the biological warfare components. It doesn't knock out Morgellons, but it knocks out bacteria, virus, and fungi. So I have looked around. There's so many silvers out there. What's the best? I found one called Agla. And that's a very powerful Kabbalistic name as well, but it's called Agla. It is an oxygenated silver, which makes it way more powerful, but most important, it's at a particular frequency and concentration that's optimal. It's extremely concentrated, but it's colloidal at the same time. And I've isolated, we just got it in a few days ago. I'm pretty excited. I've been playing with it, and it's what I would recommend. Between 2 and 6 ounces a day would give you general protective health. And really, when we're looking at this kind of thing, it's like, this is real stuff that's going on. We just had something in Europe, right? A biological warfare attack on sprouts. Well, what's that about? Well, they use it. How do sprouts get E. coli? Well, that's somebody spraying with it. And now they can use it as an excuse to outlaw organic raw food for your safety. And what are they doing? Of course, what they're doing is they're trying to take away all components of health. So, Agla, very good. The second thing is aluminine. Now, aluminine is a very highly energized scalar wave iodine. And it will force the bromium out of the system. That's really important, because it's the one healthy halogen. Chloride, fluoride, and it forces all those out, but it's getting out the bromide. So it's very important to do that. Now I'm going to recommend, on the safe side, 15 drops 3 times a day. It lasts about 4 hours in your body. And that's what we've seen is reasonably effective. It also, in higher doses, is the only thing we know achieves Morgellons. We have 3 cured cases of Morgellons. No, up until this statement, publicly, it's the only thing that has any effect on Morgellons. So if you're taking the iodine preventatively for the anti-bromide effect, you're protecting yourself against the chemtrails and the Morgellons, and that's actually really important. It also cleans the lymph, knocks out parasites. It's got many, many, many good qualities. Of course, supports thyroid function. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a combination of NCD and clinoptilite. Clinoptilite is something you take orally and actually stays in your intestine, and it pulls out the heavy metals, the radioactive materials. It pulls out the pesticides, herbicides, and other things. It pulls out the barium and aluminum. And being in the gut, it protects it from getting into your system. NCD, but it doesn't go into the system. Clinoptilite doesn't go into the system. NCD will get into the blood and pull it out of the system in other ways. So I like to use 2 of those things. So those are important in the whole picture as we're kind of looking at it. Now, another part of this now is what I call the biophoton machine. And the biophoton machine, we've talked about before, but it's a machine that has a few million programs, including the programs against everything they put in chemtrails. And so it's not homeopathic, but it creates a frequency that nullifies the effects of chemtrails. And what you do with that is you put out a coffee a filter. And that coffee filter gathers in all the chemtrails for the week. You put it in the biophoton machine, and it makes a remedy out of it in water. And, I mean, the biophoton machine does many things, but specifically for chemtrails, it's really pretty good. So that's a thing that we also offer here. We've offered for a few years, and it's something we actually do in our home, besides the others. It takes a little bit more work. So just to kind of review before we go further, we're talking about the AGO, the oxygenated silver. We're talking about the aluminine, and we're talking about the clinoptonite NCD. And pretty much, you have now pretty much covered all the aspects. Aluminine also helps inactivate the biological nanoparticles, but we still have a problem with those nanoparticles. And one of the great things is what you're doing sitting in this room is scalar wave. This is really neutralizing a lot of the negative scalar waves that we're exposed to that get stuck in our system from this whole chemtrail design. Because the chemtrails are actually reflecting the scalar waves into our little lives and into our little bodies. Okay, so sitting in this room with the EE systems is good. But what if you don't have an EE system to sit in? Well, the truth is humans are actually scalar wave devices too. So near the end of our little talk here, I'm going to lead you through a scalar wave meditation to kind of wipe out all these kind of negative scalar wave programs. Now, the 6th thing is what's your diet. And I'm going to use one other word here, your intellectual diet. What is it you're taking in? So if you aren't watching TV, you just eliminate a whole bunch of negative EMFs that affect your mind. Wow. Watch what movies you go to. Understand in the generally weakened condition, we have increased gullibility, increased susceptibility. These are real things. So given that, if we kind of watch what we take into our consciousness, we are protecting ourselves in that way. So that's number 6, and that's a pretty important thing. Now, there's 2 other I'm going to call them secondary items. One is a particular form of salt, which we've also isolated, and it immediately gets us into the salt discussion. But I just want to say, practically speaking, the research on salt was done with common table salt, not the sophisticated salt. So what are these sophisticated salts that we're talking about? The one we're recommending is scalar activated. It comes from 4 different areas in the world that are very high vortex in areas. It comes from under the ground, not from the oceans. I don't recommend getting any more salt from the oceans for many reasons. Plus, they're chemtrail, but they're radioactive. So these are safely underground. They come from Peru and Hawaii and Utah and Tibet, from high energy sources underneath the ground. So what's the point? The point is solves the crystal. And it reconnects you to the different high vortex earth frequencies. You don't have to go to Sedona, okay? But that's the concept, you see. But you're taking it into yourself from much higher vortexes than Sedona. And these crystalline energies then rebalance your body and reconnect, so to speak, your Wi-Fi system. In other words, your intercellular communication. So you have all these things disorganizing your communication, right? And now you're reconnecting your communication. So that's one thing. So that plays a role. The salts have some detox effect, but the biggest thing is it reestablishes a healthy earth frequency. Now in this particular salt that we're talking about, we have it, right? What's it called? Well, scalar salts. Yeah. And what it's doing, and this is the way the salt really works, is what I just described, but there's two other things. It's got red clay from the Big Island, which is, again, another energetic thing in it. So it's got a variety of interesting things in it that further potentize it. And it also has volcanic ash. So we have energy from the center of the earth, from the heart of the living mother. It's also in the salt. So it's a very powerful, it's a frequency we're taking in that is really, really good for us. So how much you take of that? Maybe, a pinch, 4 times a day. Okay. Particularly here in the desert, you need a little bit more, but if it's really wet weather, you don't want to take as much. But by and large, that reestablishes your frequency that's being banged around and disorganized by the scalar wave, biological attack that we're all, suffering from. The idea is we don't want to suffer, so we do all these things. The second thing is divine colloidals, and that's and minerals. It's a very unique thing. It's very, very, very concentrated colloidal, which is unique, and it's also scalar wave. And what I see about the divine colloidals is that it is really designed to pull out toxins in a pretty intense way. It's really also good for nausea when you're fasting, and it is used for acute drug detox as well. So there are lots of good things, but in this case, it's pulling out specifically the toxins. It's highly positively charged, negatively charged. It pulls out the toxins, which are usually positively charged. So those are things that kind of make a total picture that's not too complex.